Well, the portal is already hit in a fury and a frenzy as everybody seems to be in the portal, except me and our guest today here in Locked On UCLA. Let's talk about who UCLA should go after in the portal to revamp for 2023. Let's get started.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, joined once again by UCLA Hall of Famer Ed Kezirian. And before we ask him all about the transfer portal, we say thank you for making Locked On UCLA your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, available on YouTube as well. Like, comment, subscribe. Just know this episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. It's a gift from the heart that will be remembered with every unforgettable bite. Order with complete confidence today, knowing you're ordering the very best. Visit omahasteaks.com with the promo code Locked On. Get that extra $30 off your next order. And well, the next order of business here for today's episode is the likes of the transfer portal. We disperse for a couple of days, Ed. We talk about your history as a UCLA player, coach, administrator, and then now we talk about the current team here today, and so many players, maybe not necessarily UCLA, but so many players have hit the portal already. And I was going to kind of start off by asking you, what do you think is something from what you've seen from afar, overall in college football and for UCLA, that they need in the transfer portal for the next season?
Well, Zach, thanks for having me on again. I am going to say, first and foremost, that with the transfer portal, a head coach has got to be worried about all positions all the time. Just because the nature of how things are changing at such a rapid pace, it's hard to say that, oh, we should concentrate on any one position because we got to be concerned about all positions. For example, we have a kicker that has done all our kicking the last 3 years, our punting this year. It's like two positions, and he enters the portal, Nicholas Barr-Mira. And so going into the bowl game, you can't solve that problem, but you got to look to the future and figure out how we can be in a position to have a backup or somebody qualified with injuries and everything at all positions. I'm sorry, I'm not qualified to talk about specific positions and needs and who UCLA and Coach Chip Kelly should go after, but I do think it's something that's straining college football coaching staffs right now. I can see why the coaching staffs in football have grown so much, especially in the last couple of years, to accommodate having enough people to scout and evaluate and constantly recruit the players that you have, as well as look at all the other college players that are entering the portal every day. I think we have upwards of 1,000 that have entered the portal already, because December 1st is the first day that college football coaches can contact kids for the next 45 days. So there's a lot going on, and the transfer portal is really a big one.
And then I want to kind of go back to when you were coaching. What was it like then when you were recruiting? I know you were more of the offensive line and then the one head coach for the one game for the 2 weeks. We'll get to that again. But for being being a coach back then, what was it like what was the transfers like back then compared to now, how like it's the portal, you can one-time transfer, go anywhere. What was it like back then building a program for 3 to 4 years of having a player at a time?
Well, two analogies. Great question, because I would say transfers when I was coaching implied more kids from the 2-year colleges. Because anybody that came into your program that was from a 4-year would sit out a year. So it was 2 years later that you'd be able to benefit from something like that. So I'll go back to 1972 when I attended UCLA. We had, I want to say, don't hold me to it, 11 community college transfers to build the team from a 2-7-1 in 1971 to what turned out to be 8-3 in 1972, and we did it with 2-year transfers. So I guess the analogy would be the transfer portal today uh, is wild. It's wide open now, but the 2-year colleges was kind of our way to maybe solve that problem. The other example I'll give you is when SMU received the death penalty in 1986. And we at UCLA going into the 1987 season really felt like we had a really strong team, but we needed one more offensive lineman and one more linebacker. So I found myself in Dallas, Texas, and looking to get Dave Richards and Ben Hummel, which were two big needs that came from SMU to UCLA to really help us in 1987 to a 10-2 season. So those are my analogies, but the portal today is more wide open than those isolated examples. But that hopefully that gives people that are listening or viewing some kind of analogy of what it must be like only on warp speed now.
It seems like even a few years ago, the JUCO route was very big for recruiting. Oh, you can get a 1-year fix or a 2-year fix, whether it be that quarterback. Even, hey, remember, I know this isn't necessarily UCLA related, but Cam Newton, he was the old school version of a D1 bounce back to a JUCO and then went back to Auburn and led them to the national championship. For UCLA, and maybe in years past, they would have hit a junior college, find some people. Now they go directly, as you mentioned, as opposed to the 2-year universities or the community colleges, they go to the 4-year universities and just pluck players that they want. UCLA is already rumored to be in the running for any Stanford player in the portal and arguably any Cal player in the portal. They already got a Cal commit, a linebacker. I don't want to butcher his name, but he had 17 tackles for Cal against UCLA in that game just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. Thanksgiving seems like it's been so far, but it's not too far away. And UCLA already got a linebacker. They've already got a transfer portal commit from a grad transfer from Penn in Jake Heimlicher, I've already talked about. And UCLA is already grabbing in the portal, as the likes of Chip Kelly has already shown he can win in the portal versus that high school recruiting.
Well, the when in 15 years of administrative work at UCLA and Coach Chip Kelly, he really has bought into books and ball. I heard that mentioned a week or two ago, so here I absorb it. But in 15 years of administrative work, we had 13 2-year transfers at UCLA. Now, they were all outstanding kids that contributed and went on, and all 13 graduated from UCLA. 2 might have done it at a later date, going back to school to finish. But my point is that's not a lot of 2-year transfers, 13 and 15 years, where other schools might be set up to be able to get 5 or 10 a year. Things in 1972 when I played were a lot different at UCLA in terms of admissions than the last 20 years. So my point is that the transfer portal and Coach Chip Kelly and his staff and the scouting and everybody else, they're doing a wonderful job, because I think we're hitting at UCLA on a higher percentage of transfer portals, quality over quantity. And you got to tip your hat to Coach Kelly and what UCLA's been able to do with the transfer portal, seeing how that's an avenue that's open to everyone across college football. I think the way Coach Kelly's handling it last year, 2 years ago, hats off to Coach.
Yeah, just to name a few off the top, just looking at the roster, you can't forget ZZ Hurney's come in as a grad transfer and been a starting DB. You have Jalen Davies, who's got a couple of interceptions. He started at Oregon. Can't forget the Murphy twins, both from North Texas. Then you have the likes of Leatu Latu, finding him in an important role. UCLA, watching Jake Bobo, Zach Charbonnet, even Darius Muasau. Those are names just boom, 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 right off the top. You have Raekwon O'Neal, who is the 6'4" redshirt junior offensive lineman from Rutgers. Even Ethan Garbers, who could very well be in competition for the starting quarterback job for next year, if not the bowl game. He's already a transfer. So these are guys that the likes of Chip Kelly has already hit on, and I'm still not even listing half the roster, as there's already guys in the portal. That's a good point you bring up, Ed, that Chip Kelly's already proven he can hit on the transfer portal. And maybe the next thing is he's gotten good guys. And Charbonnet, you have to say, is a home run. And Bobo is a great hit. And some of these little defensive gets were awesome this year. But what's the next home run? Is it the quarterback? There's so many quarterbacks out there. JT Daniels, you have Keaton Slovis. Those are former Trojans. Not that you want them in the UCLA uniform, but who knows? You have Clemson's quarterback and in DJ, and then the list is endless. And it seems like UCLA might need to hit a lot more on the portal this year and rely on it than especially for this year, this season specifically, because they had a lot of seniors this year. Now they got to replace all those guys.
Well, that all makes a lot of sense. You want to be strategic. I think Coach Kelly's being strategic with the transfer portal, and everybody that's a UCLA fan and alumni should respect the nice job that he's doing, because I think he wants to respect and develop players that are there, but also look to the portal, because that's a whole new avenue that's opened things up for UCLA to be more competitive, I believe. You're talking top 20 academics, top 15 academics in the country year after year at UCLA. Fantastic school academically, and yet we're able with this portal to be able to kind of grow our opportunities for student athletes who are focused on school and also sports, football.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about how do you keep players motivated. You have to coach a bowl game. We'll talk about that. How do you keep players that are still there? It's almost even tougher now. How do you keep the players motivated? As we talk about that in just a moment. But first, I will talk about Omaha Steaks. Yeah, you see that promo code. You hear about Omaha Steaks. You heard about it. It's a good holiday gift because the holidays are here. You can achieve gifting greatness when you give the gift of perfectly aged, tender, and delicious Omaha Steaks. The steak experts at Omaha Steaks have put together special curated gift packages, taking the guesswork out of gifting and making you a holiday hero. Go to omahasteaks.com, take advantage of 50% off site-wide, plus use the promo code Locked On at checkout to get an additional $30 off your order. Once and again, you can get 50% off site-wide on omahasteaks.com, and then with the Locked On promo code, get an additional $30 off. Omaha Steaks is ready to ship your order right away, so shop early and beat that shipping rush. You know it'll be crazy during the holiday season, as it already is. Go to omahasteaks.com and use the promo code Locked On at checkout to get an additional $30 off, already with the big sale site-wide here on Locked On UCLA. In the meantime, as we bring you back, Locked On UCLA, it's Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer alongside Ed Kezirian as we get to the second segment of this jam-packed episode. Maybe we won't be throwing individual names because there's still more names to go in the portal. There's still more guys to be committed, and UCLA already has that Cal linebacker commit, the Penn grad transfer commit, even though the portal technically wasn't officially open, but he committed to UCLA, or maybe he did one way or the other. UCLA is racking up the commitments, and we'll keep tabs on those throughout the week. But what I wanted to ask you, Ed, was the fact that there's players still on this roster that have to play another game against Pitt the day before New Year's, December 30th in the Sun Bowl. What was your reaction before we get to the motivation factor into them being named to the Sun Bowl? Was that the right bowl, or is that just a disappointing end of a bowl game for this season?
No, I don't think it's a disappointing end at all. And I think the Sun Bowl's a class bowl. Anytime there's a bowl game in the state of Texas, they take a lot of pride in their bowl games. And UCLA's been to the Sun Bowl a few times. They were all great experiences. And Sun Bowl committee and the executive director and the people involved in it have done a great job for decades. So
I mean,
I'm excited for UCLA to be able to have that opportunity.
If you're looking on YouTube, you can see on Ed's shirt, it says UCLA Sun Bowl. How many Sun Bowls have you been to specifically?
Well, I have been to 3 of the 4 that UCLA's participated in. This one's from 2005, a 10-2 team with Coach Durrell that was down 22-0 to Northwestern before we knew what happened, and then came roaring back to win 50-38. So I've been experienced them in 1991 as a coach, and 2000 as an administrator, and then again in 2005.
And what was your record of those again? I think winning record, I believe. when you were
Well,
there?
what was nice about 1991
Mhm,
was Coach Donahue's eighth consecutive bowl victory. The first coach they ever do that
mhm.
in NC2A history also. Besides winning 7 consecutive, there was 1 or 2 years we didn't go in 89 and 90, and then 91, 9-3 and head to the Sun Bowl, and coach was able to get his 8th win in a row. Not in a
Yeah.
row, but consecutive. Or so anyway, it was exciting. We loved the experience in 91, and Jimmy Rogers Jr. He was executive director in 1970. He's emeritus now. I saw Bernie Olivas, who was working hard back in those days, and now he's executive director now. The people in El Paso take this seriously. It's going to be a great experience for our student athletes. So getting to the motivation part real quick, if I could just talk about that. The kids they need to know winning the game is what's fun about a bowl game. So convincing them that winning the game, that's where those memories are going to feel more long lasting. And that's really important. But next is, guys, we're going to have as much fun as we possibly can, as long as we stay focused on winning the game. So win the game, but let's have as much fun as possible. The bowl game will have a lot of activities. There'll be gifts. Let's do a lot of preparation and work hard here on campus before we get to the bowl game so we can enjoy the bowl game experience. So you kind of you try to have 3, 4 things that you have our student athletes focus on leading up to traveling to El Paso.
You were the head coach that won, the interim head coach that won back in '02. That was the Las Vegas Bowl, correct? When you
Correct.
guys were able
Correct.
to take down New Mexico in
That's
that
correct.
win. And so you had to have those couple weeks leading up to it. You had 5 less days to wait for your bowl game because you guys had to play on Christmas Day. But what was something you did specifically, or did you lean on the assistants at the time when you were the interim then trying to keep the players focused? I know you just kind of mentioned it, but what were some things you specifically try to keep them engaged for a bowl game as you guys did win?
Well, I would like to have everybody just think back to 2002. We had a head football coach that was a coordinator for 2 years and then head coach for 7 more. So someone with 9 years, almost a decade at UCLA, is not going to be coaching that bowl game. And imagine the relationships he had with his staff. Those A lot of the coaches, the assistant coaches were close to the head football coach. And think about the wives and the families and how things change when a coaching change is gonna take place in about 2, 3 weeks after the bowl game. So having the coaches even stay focused in their families, that's critical too. So what do? You try to make sure you continue to work hard, but maybe you adjust practice times a little less and you find ways to work hard but work more efficiently. Stay positive and enthusiastic. As I start to talk to you, Zach, I'm going to be kind of going through the pyramid of success once again in terms of delegating, uh, you know, uh, cooperating with the assistant coaches. I delegated a lot of things. I certainly wasn't in a position, having been out of coaching for a number of years, but having played, been a graduate assistant, been an assistant coach and administrator. Hopefully, the assistant coaches respected me enough to kind of let me kind of uh, serve as an administrator in that capacity. But delegating to the assistant coaches, making sure everybody had a great experience was number one on my list. Plus, I didn't mention, and it's really important, Zach, we had 14 seniors on the 2002 squad. They were 14 great seniors. And so I appealed to the rest of the team, let's send these seniors out with a win. So that would be another way to motivate.
And the other thing is too, UCLA is going for that program record tying win for a single season. With the win, that would be their 10th. And then, as you've already mentioned, you had seniors. This team has a plethora of, I don't even know if they're seniors anymore. They're senior citizens in terms of college student athletes because they've been around so long, like the DTRs, Jake Bobo, Charbonnets. They've been around with the COVID year, the extra year, the red shirts, however it works. There are so many older players that could be in their 22, 23, 20-year-old, 24-year-old year, seniors, grad transfers, graduates, master's programs, and they all can try and play for that win against the likes of Pitt. And that Pitt game's interesting because they haven't played Pitt in 50 years. And I feel like I know somebody who has played against the Pittsburgh Panthers. I know you're laughing, but we'll get to that in a moment here in Locked On UCLA. We'll get to why that chuckle is so endearing because, well, we'll tell you in a moment, as we'll tell you about Built Bar. Hey, let's pause for a second. Before we talk about Pitt, just know that you've got to try these new reimagined flavors for Built Bar. They've got cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, and coconut brownie topper. They've got what's it takes to be super filling. It's insanely tasty. They even got a white chocolate peppermint granola, candy cane brownie, even the holiday flavors that you so desperately love. They've got. If you've never tried a Built Bar, they are the best tasting protein bars ever built. They're 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, shockingly low sugar and calories, only 130 calories. Sinking your teeth into the first bite will change your life forever. Just know that there'll be a time where you need to try these new Built flavors. It's magical, wonderful. It's a great time afterwards. And just know it's Built that you've got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's locked on the number 15. Locked on 15. It's the number 15 at built.com to get 15% off your order. Go try that protein bar. Get you energized. It's amazing. Go try it. It's Built Bar. They got all the holiday flavors and the new flavors. The same flavor this week is building up to the bowl game. We have 24 days until UCLA, for this moment, takes the field and prepares themselves for that Pitt game in the Sun Bowl in El Paso on December 30th. An early game at 11 a.m. Pacific kickoff for the Bruins against the Pitt Panthers. They haven't played Pitt since 1972, and if my math is correct, it's been 50 years since September 16th, 1972, when UCLA beat Pitt and won 38-28. And as we welcome back Ed Kezirian, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer here in Locked On UCLA, wrapping up today's episode, you were laughing before the little mini break there. You were laughing. Why were you laughing? What is so special about that UCLA Pitt game? I believe you played in that game, right?
Yes, I did. I was a transfer from Reedley College, and it was my second game coming off of my first game being the upset of Nebraska 2017 in the opener, where Nebraska was thinking about trying to be a three-time defending national championship, but we were able to get that win. So my experience going back to Pittsburgh, my gosh, to fly that far and go back east when I hadn't been on a plane ever until I was going through the recruiting process, in community college, to fly that far. I had relatives back east and family so important. And I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins at the game. So that was exciting. I remember it being 38-28, but it was a physical game, which you're going to get when you're going to go back east. I just think the nature of, the area and everything. Pitt's prides themselves in being physical, and I remember it being a physical game. What stood out in my mind was Rob Scribner was our backup quarterback. Mark Harmon, our starter. He was a transfer from a two-year college, Pierce College, and he had a great game. But then Rob Scribner came in, who was a defensive back that Coach Rogers moved to offense, and I think in 5-6 carries, he had over 100 yards. I just remember that standing out. But we played really well overall as a team for our second game of the year and came away victorious. And I have a lot of memories. I remember hitting a defensive back, running across field, Zach, so hard I bit through my mouthpiece on one play during that game. So, you have moments. You remember moments, and the Pitt game was one that I remember. We were playing them all the time, I think in the late 50s and most of the 60s. But then in 72 is the last time we end up playing Pitt. And so this will be exciting. They have two quality teams. It's a great matchup. You've got 9-3, 8-4, and you've got a great matchup at the Sun Bowl. I think they're looking forward to it, and we should look forward to it too. One more thing on motivation, Zach, and is that I've been around 6 of the 9 10-win seasons. I think you mentioned it, to get our 10th 10-win season, that's motivating, and that's something that the players should think about. That's exciting in the history of UCLA football, to be able to be one of the 10 10-win seasons, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it's a mouthful. One of the 10-10-win seasons as
Thank you for the help.
No worries. But yes, I mean, despite the lack of a Rose Bowl appearance or even a possible college football playoff bid, and UCLA, well, they talked about doing big things. And when it's all said and done, they'll have a record-breaking quarterback, and maybe even more if he plays in the bowl game, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Chip Kelly, and they set out to do something. And at the very least, they will have a potential to equal the single season program record win total, which would be 10, which, that's a successful season despite a couple of sad losses at the end. This is a reason for positivity at the end of the year, and lots of seniors who are trying to build their cases for the NFL draft, even maybe not players listed as seniors, but guys who could depart early for the draft, and just guys who want to play for pride. It might be their last college football game. And again, as you mentioned, the 10-win season is something very special at UCLA. And soon enough, they'll need to eclipse that, especially when you try to win next year in the Pac-12 and then building, as we expect, for the Big Ten, barring craziness from the UC Regents in the next week with their meeting. But all we expect is a fun 10-win season. And I was looking at the UCLA website. UCLA all-time against Pitt, 9-5. As you mentioned, yes, back in the late 50s when that series started back in 1958. They lost 2 in a row to Pitt to start off the all-time series, and then UCLA has won 9 of the last 12 meetings. So funny enough, we talk about 10. This could be UCLA's 10th all-time win against Pitt in the all-time series history, and they haven't played in 50 years.
That's right. And, I want to mention, because I'm going to reference Coach Donahue, who did everything for me in this profession to be at UCLA, like I have for 32 years in one capacity or another. Coach Kelly, Chip Kelly, when Coach Donahue passed July 4th, a year and a half ago, when he talked about Coach Donahue, he said, "We will always love and play hard for Coach Donahue." And last year at 8-4, I that happened. This year at 9-3, every game, I think that happened. So I think I'm really appreciative of that, and I think the players can also have that, knowing that, hey, we will always love and play hard for Coach Donahue. Coach Kelly feels strongly about that, and I think the way the players have played last year and this year with our seasons, I think we have one more game in which we need to play hard, and we've done that the last 2 years. We shouldn't stop now in this last game of 2022.
And even though it's a bowl game, this is practically the offseason. You build for 2023 with these practices, although with the portal, there's still the importance of spring practice, yes, but these are the building moments to seeing which guys can earn potential playing time next year, not just the bowl game, and then building their stock for the rest of their football career, whether it be at UCLA or in the professional ranks or somewhere else. These are key practices, whether it be a couple extra 12 practices or 10 or whatever the number is leading up to the Sun Bowl, depending on how many practices they have. UCLA, this is a good building opportunity to hit the portal and see what they have. If DTR doesn't play, what has Garbers got? I've seen a lot of UCLA faithful talking about the likes of, hey, what about Justin Martin from Inglewood, the true freshman, the 6'4 product? Will we see those quarterbacks? Will we see 3 quarterbacks? All those questions and then some will be answered, just like the portal. We'll hit all those questions once again when we get to more commits, more people in the portal. It's only the second true busy day of the transfer portal with more names going and being thrown into the wind, as we won't even know who's going to be in the portal or not until the next couple of weeks. But Ed, thanks for being on. Have to once again shout out the women's soccer program for that epic
I should have started with that. The national championship number 120.
Yes,
That's
120.
exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, that was the first time in the women's soccer College Cup history in the title match that someone came from 2 goals down to win the championship. And they did in the final 10 minutes and forced overtime and won with the Mary Carmen Reyes game winner in overtime, in the second period of overtime, which calls for an A clap. Get your hands up.
Yes, it does.
Let's get that hands up.
Does.
Just go check out Locked On Sports today. Make that your second listen. Thanks for making Locked On UCLA your first listen. It's time for a clap time. And let's go.
And
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8. U C
C
L
A.
UCLA.
Fight.
You bet. You bet. Congratulations, Bruins. And, thank you, Zach, for having me on. It is a great opportunity, real quick, to get the younger players with some practices. December 30th is a nice time to have a bowl game. You can work a lot with a lot of the underclassmen and just keep building for UCLA football in the future.
Keep building, get that 10th win, and then, most importantly, build for 2023 and beyond for the Big Ten. For Ed Kezirian, I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Click that subscribe button on YouTube. Thanks for your support. Download all the episodes wherever you listen to your podcast. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.
Go Bruins.